We're streaming.
This meeting is being live streamed. Hello, everybody, and welcome to
extra happy Sunday.
Oh my goodness, extra happy Sunday here. I don't know about you, Dr. Katie, but the weather here today is like so perfect. I don't know where. Is it nice where you are?
Oh, it's amazing. I'm in Colorado and we're getting like the traditional fall weather, and we haven't had that. Like last year, like I think it was Labor Day weekend, we had a blizzard. And so it like literally ended fall, and it was like summer done, fall gone, winter time started. So this is amazing. It's been great.
Blizzard is one way to make sure you know summer's over.
Yeah. Here's 5 feet of snow. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, today was like the first day that the temperature dropped to like the 70s in the morning. And I was like, this is so perfect. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. And
doing the thing. You guys, happy Sunday. We are so excited to once again be joined by the incredible natural pet doctor, Dr. Katie Woodley. Today, we're going to be talking about cat cancer, which on its face sounds a little scary and not like a great topic, but Dr. Katie is here today to share with us some illuminating, informative, uplifting, and empowering things. And I'm so grateful that you're joining us again today. For those that are new, would you give a short intro about who you are, how you came to be, and the work that you do?
Yeah, I am so grateful to be back with everyone and you lovely ladies. And once again, I'm Dr. Katie Woodley. If you don't know who I am, I'm the founder and holistic veterinarian of the Natural Pet Doctor. And I essentially found holistic medicine after going down the conventional path and after having my husband develop an autoimmune disease and realizing that we had to find another way. And through that experience and all the things we learned through his own health and path, I stumbled upon acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, and I knew I could do better for my pet patients. So I essentially, through the past 11 years now of being a veterinarian, have transitioned completely to being an integrative holistic veterinarian, where I focus on real food nutrition, acupuncture, Chinese herbs, essential oils, supplements, and all the things on focusing how to fix the root problem rather than symptomatic care. I'm based in Northern Colorado, where I do house consultations, but I also offer telehealth consults for pet parents worldwide. So once again, so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I love how you said that though, that working on integrative medicine, holistic care instead of symptom care. Like you said it so much better than I just fumbled it. But care, I think that's something that is an incredible thing to realize, is that there's so much that we can do. Yes, a lot of the times we're treating a symptom, but looking at the holistic care is it's illuminating.
Well, that's what holistic care is all about, right? It's about looking at the whole of this body of the issue, and how to address it holistically, versus, just treating symptoms as we go. So that's so amazing. Thank you so much. Now, I think that this topic is very important, for everyone, because the statistics are all over the place, but they're showing that 1 in 3 cats will develop cancer in their lifetime. And that is, that's something that all of us as cat parents should be aware of. I mean, that scares me. With us having 6 cats, that means that 2 of our cats could very likely come down with cancer. And I know that when it comes to us being proactive as cat parents, sometimes we might not all, probably everyone watching right now is not dealing with a cat that has cancer, but knowing the statistics, I think there's,
quite a few.
There are so many ways that we can go about preventing that in our kitties. So
let's dive in.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah. And to give people a little bit of a background, cancer's scary for most people. And I don't want this to be about fear. I want this to feel empowering, because you have the tools, and we're going to give you some tips to kind of help guide you through that. And I'd love for the people that are here live, like drop a comment down below if you're worried about cancer, if your cat's currently dealing with cancer, or let us know where you're at with this topic so that we can kind of guide the discussion to help you best. And the biggest things that I always go back to is, 1 in 3 cats develop cancer. we're talking about cats, but dogs, 1 in 2 dogs develop cancer. Those statistics are overwhelming. And unfortunately, personally, I've actually had 2 of my previous cats, my first 2 cats on my own, they both developed aggressive GI lymphoma. I've been there personally. I've been down that emotional path. I've had to look at my own cats and go, do I do chemo? Do I treat them just naturally? Or what can I use for them to make sure that I'm not limiting their quality of life and I'm doing everything possible in the right way for them? So I'm going to incorporate some of their stories because they were at the beginning of my holistic journey. There's a lot of information and tools that I have now that I would do very differently that I want to give to you, so you don't make some of the same mistakes that I made with my own cats, because that's very important. But I always come back to, what are the foundations of health? And this is essential because a lot of times we kind of go through this life, whether it's yourself, whether it's your pets, and you're like, I feel good. I think I feel good. I think my pet feels good. I don't really know what feels good. I don't know. The world's kind of crazy. You go to the vet clinic, you run the blood work, and they're like, that looks great. And just like we were talking before we went live, it's like, those blood values look normal for your cat's age. And you're like, great. But what does that mean? And so this is very important, where we can go back to those foundations of health. And I always go back to, what is the nutrition you're feeding your cat? This is going to directly impact gut health. How are you supporting their immune health? How are you supporting emotional health? What's going on in the environment? So environmental health. And also, what's going on with their physical health? How are we supporting physical health? Those 5 foundations, whenever I'm worried about something or my cat is showing a symptom or they're behaving a little bit off, I go back to, well, what am I feeding? Did I change something? Did I add in treats? Did something change in the environment? Did we get like a new person moving in? Maybe the kid moved back from college and he's loud and noisy and likes playing loud music and the cat's not a fan. Did the neighbors just spray their yard with pesticides? Did we use a floor cleaner? Did we use a topical flea and tick preventative? Did we just give a vaccine? What are we giving supplement wise to support our cats' bodies? And this, when we go back to it, it can feel a little bit overwhelming, but I'm going to dial it back a little bit so that it doesn't feel overwhelming to you. But that's what I want you to focus on, because when we look at our cats from a holistic perspective, everything's connected. And so when we dial in each of those foundations, that's when we achieve optimal health. But even if your cat is dealing with cancer, you can still go back to these foundations and fill in the gaps. That's the power of this, looking at the problem this way. So that's kind of where I want to start, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good, guys?
I love it. And I'll just say that a lot of people are commenting, many had cats that they've lost to cancer. Others currently have cats with cancer, one with lymphoma and is on a steroid daily for it. There's and then Madison, who we'll get to her question in the end. And
I forgot to mention that we do have a couple questions that were submitted prior to the live that Dr. Katie will be answering closer to the end of the hour, but we'll also be incorporating this to kind of help guide the conversation.
Yes. May have bladder cancer. Yeah, lots of, so a lot of people are showing up today for all this amazing information that you're going to give. So thank you. And if there's time at the end, we will also address some questions in the comments. If you guys missed, we've been promoting it this week, mainly in our stories. So you guys have been submitting questions. If you missed that and you still have questions at the end, after we address the pre-submitted questions, if there's time, we'll try to get to yours too, or she will. Yes, she's teaching us at the same time.
So should we start with the foundations?
Yes.
What's some great guidance on the foundations for their gut health, their immunity health?
Perfect. So let's talk about gut health. So this is going to tie into nutrition. It's going to tie into immune health. As we're finding out through lots of research that's being done, 70% of the immune system is in the gut. And so if we're not feeding the good microbiome is the trillions of bacteria, viruses, protozoa, fungi that make up that microbiome in our gut, in your cat's gut. And if we're not feeding them the right foods and we're not treating them well, then we're not going to support overall optimal health. So what does that look like for a cat? This is where we go back to, well, what's the physiology of the cat, right? We know they're obligate carnivores. They need high protein diets. We need to lower the amount of carbohydrates that are being fed to our cats. And this is where, unfortunately, so many cat parents are led down the wrong path. They're put onto like a prescription diet. So like, say, I know someone mentioned that their cat might have bladder cancer. Usually that's diagnosed after rounds and rounds of antibiotics and misdiagnosis, unfortunately, because they think it's a UTI, a urinary tract infection. And so what happens is they get put on a prescription dry food, right? And now what we've done is, if it is a cancer case, what happens with high carbohydrate diets, so these are kibble diets. Most kibble diets are going to be around 40 to 60% carbohydrates. Cats should be fed at least 80% protein. And then if we're doing another 20% of carbohydrates, those are going to be things like the vegetables, other nutrients, fats. So this isn't like your grains, not your corn, not your starches, because what happens is with those high carb diets, that carb is turned, it's a starch, it's turned into sugar, and cancer cells feed off of sugar. So you may have heard of like ketogenic diets, and those are very powerful at actually starving out cancer cells. And cats are actually really well adapted for those high protein diets and also high fat diets. So whenever I am treating a cat with cancer, I'm always looking at, well, how do we limit those carbohydrates if they're still on that? Usually it means transitioning to either a fresh food diet that's high protein or a raw food diet. Now, there can be some pros and cons if your cat's going through chemotherapy, but there are a lot of pets on raw diets that do well with chemotherapy. So it's not necessarily something that can't be done, but you have to look at the diet. What are you feeding your cat, whether they have cancer or whether they don't right now? This is a huge preventative area. The other part of nutrition is we have to look at what's in that food. Unfortunately, processed pet foods, whether it's even our canned food diets. Now, I was looking at some statistics for squamous cell carcinoma before our talk, and what we're finding is that tuna flavored canned foods, there's an increased risk of squamous cell carcinoma. Well, why is that? Because tuna tends to have heavy metals in it. And so this is where we can look at the types of foods and what's in that food. Are there chemicals? Are there heavy metals that are going to be taxing to the body? Are they going to be leading to degenerative changes? Are they setting up chronic inflammation in the body? Because anytime we put something into the body and it leads to inflammation and we don't resolve it, then what happens is we get chronic inflammation. That chronic inflammation leads to cellular changes that can eventually turn into cancer. And so that's where we always start from one place. It's not like just like all of a sudden, boom, your cat has cancer. There's this process that's occurring, and food is very powerful. We can use food as medicine. So start analyzing that. Look at the ingredient list on the back of, if you are still feeding a kibble diet, see if you can start transitioning your cat over to at least a wet food diet or over to a freeze-dried raw or a raw diet. We need to get more moisture. We need to reduce the carbohydrates. Also, if you are feeding a canned food diet, I want you to look for carrageenan. Carrageenan is a common ingredient in wet food diets. That's a known GI irritant, meaning it leads to inflammation. So if you have a cat that's vomiting is not normal. Your cat should not be vomiting, but especially if you have a cat that you don't know if they have inflammatory bowel disease or if they have lymphoma, this is essential that you're removing those chemicals from the food that are causing an inflamed GI tract. So that's very important. We have to start looking more deeply at our foods. The other thing I want to touch on is feed grade versus human grade. So now we're going a little bit deep. I could talk all day about this. However, most
valuable though.
It is, because most cat parents don't understand the difference, and most veterinarians have no clue. And the reason why is because you're not taught it in vet school. And what the difference is when we're looking at human grade foods, human grade means I can eat it. So I want my cat to be able to eat my foods, right? When we think about like cat food, pet food in general, we see like chicken as the first ingredient. And you're like, oh, that's great. It's like the chicken I buy from the supermarket, right? No, it's far from it. If it's not human grade, which would be listed on the bag and the brand, it will be stated. It will also be more expensive because feed grade is literally the products that are not suitable for human consumption. What does that entail? Roadkill, euthanized animals. I hate saying that, but that's unfortunately the truth. We have sick cows, down cows, animals that died on the farm that they have to get rid of. We also have, where do you think the meats that are expired from grocery stores, leftovers from restaurants, leftover bacon grease from restaurants, the plastic containers that are holding those expired meats? Unfortunately, it's going into your pet's food. And it's going into your pet's food through a process called rendering. And this is where, especially if you're seeing meat meal, and unfortunately, they're changing some of the labels to say like dried meat. So if you see dried meat on your label coming up on new food bags that you're purchasing, this is once again going back to reading ingredient lists. This is meat meal. Meat meal byproducts. Not all byproducts are bad. When I make fresh food diets for patients, I'm incorporating organ meats, and those are byproducts. However, when we look at feed grade and like organs, the byproducts, those aren't like the organs. They're the diseased byproducts, or like it's the beaks, it's the feathers, it's the products of that animal that don't have much nutrition to them. And so that was a huge realization for me as a veterinarian, where I went, holy smokes, like no wonder why my cats developed cancer. I'm feeding them dry food. So here's a couple of mistakes I made. Going through vet school, I learned you can feed dry food or canned food, right? For a cat. They were on dry food and a wet food diet. And they were on some of the foods that be sold through the vet clinic. And looking at that now, I changed them as I went down the path. They were probably on a raw food diet for about a year before they were diagnosed. And that was one factor. Now, here's the thing. This is not meant to scare people, because what you can start doing today is you can start incorporating some of these different foods into your cat's diet. So let's say if you have a cat like my Kiwi cat, my 10-year-old rescued cat we got about a year and a half ago, and she was addicted to kibble. Like she had been fed kibble her entire life. She's like, screw you, that raw meat is not real food. Give me back my kibble. And so she would go on hunger strikes, and we can't starve cats. They can get really sick if we don't allow them to eat and get enough calories. After 3 days, they can get really sick. So they're not like little dogs. Don't like fast them. I see some people suggesting that they'll eventually eat. They can't starve themselves. They can, and they can get really sick. So don't do that. But what you can do is you can start adding in some of these different freeze-dried liver treats. Super great nutrient source. And a lot of cats will eat it. It's stinky. It has high vitamin A, other vitamins and minerals in it. Start adding that. What you can do too is crumble it and sprinkle it on the kibble. Because what you can do is you can teach your cat and you can trick them to start liking the better food. So you're offering like the wet food and the dry food by itself. You're feeding meals. So don't leave the food down all the time. And you can slowly start transitioning them, or at least you're getting some other foods in that are higher quality for them. And reading the ingredient list, looking for human grades. There are some brands out there, Open Farm. I think Honest Kitchen is a human grade, Raised Right. There's a lot of great brands out there that you can start offering to your cats. So definitely look for human grade, start reading the ingredient list, looking for higher quality products that fit within your budget as you can. And that alone will make a huge difference. And then when you're feeding the gut, here's the thing. A lot of times as our pets age, their digestive enzymes decrease. So especially if they're on a kibble diet, especially if they're on a processed food diet, we need to add in supplements that are going to support digestion. I always go back to probiotics and digestive enzymes. And that way, when you're looking at probiotics, make sure it has a prebiotic in it, because we can't just put good bacteria in. We've got to give them a food source. And so I see a lot of common probiotics out there on the vet market. One of them I'm going to say, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but Fortiflora is a really common one. And it's one strain and it has animal digest in it. And so it's a great tool to help transition your cat over to a different food, but it's not because it tastes good. That's the animal digest, but animal digest comes from those rendered products. It's a flavoring. Right. And so we don't want to use that as the sole probiotic. The other thing is it doesn't have a prebiotic in it. And so it doesn't have anything for that bacteria to actually feed off of. And so I use that for transitioning picky cats. But when I look for in a probiotic is it broad spectrum? Do we have numerous strains of beneficial bacteria? Lactobacillus, bifidobacterium are really common. However, if your cat is sensitive, has like GI issues, vomiting, gets loose stool really easily, I tend to go more for your spore-based probiotics. These are things like bacillus, or even using your yeast strain. So not all yeast is bad. So this is using, there's a brand called Jarrow. If like you're in part of the world where you can't find certain things, and they're a human brand, and I just completely blanked on the yeast. Oh, Saccharomyces boulardii, there we go. And so that's another great one. And the reason why I like those is because what happens is some cats will have what we call small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, and we don't know it. But what happens is you give these probiotics, you give like lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, you're like, probiotics are great, right? You give it to them and they start vomiting. Their like GI system gets worse. And you're like, oh, they don't do well with probiotics. And you write off the whole thing. This is where you need to try the other strains of probiotics. And this is where bacillus will actually pass through the small intestine. It won't like fuel the fire if there's an overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine. It goes directly to the colon, the large intestine. And when it gets there, what it's doing is it's helping the body produce short chain fatty acids. It's helping the body produce vitamins and minerals, things like B12, which is essential. And it's supporting the overall health. It's supporting immune health. It's actually creating anti-inflammatory mediators to help calm down the gut lining. A lot of times these cats have leaky gut. And so look for bacillus, look for your yeast, especially if your cat's on an antibiotic, they will survive the antibiotics. We need to support them. And so those definitely should be added in. And digestive enzymes. The reason for digestive enzymes is that we're finding enzymes decrease as the cat ages. And so when your cats, if they're on a high carb diet, we need to give them the tools and resources to break down fats, carbs, and their proteins. And so that's where your digestive enzymes like your lipases, your proteases are going to make it easier for them to break it down into small enough particles that they're able to absorb the nutrients into their body. And what we find is a lot of these cats, what's happening is they're not breaking it down, and they already have what's called leaky gut. Their gut lining's inflamed. The gut lining should be like this, nice and tight, nothing can pass through it. And what happens, especially when we're feeding these foods that have chemicals, they're processed, poor quality proteins, is those tight junctions and the gut lining start separating. They get inflamed and they can't sit together, and you start seeing holes. And what happens is that food, bacteria, and toxins pass through those holes into the bloodstream and stimulate an inflammatory response. That's leaky gut. That's when you see things like allergies, you see things like cancer, you see things like autoimmune disease, and it all comes back down to gut health. So I know that was a lot on like gut health, but it's tied into immune system, it's tied into food, it's tied into everything. So if you have a cat with cancer, or you're worried about cancer, you have to optimize gut health.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to just vouch for that whole rendering and ingredients that go into commercial pet foods, because my dad actually worked for a rendering plant when I was in a senior in high school. And it was the place that I don't think we really knew at first what it was. Everybody knew just to hold your nose if you were within 15 miles of the place, because it smelled so bad. And he would come home and my mom would literally have to hose him off before he could come into the house. The house stunk so bad. I went and stayed with a friend. The job didn't last long, but he would talk about how the tarps and the scissors and the things that would go through the processing plant to become pet food, because it would cost them millions of dollars to shut down the entire process while they're trying to put all the nasty ingredients through. And it's a really sad thing, but yes.
But I think it's wonderful that you kind of it went into a deep dive on not just the food, but some of the things like leaky gut. I think it's something that people hear, but they don't really understand what's happening there and what causes that and what it looks like on the outside. So incredible foundational information just about food and gut health and immune health. I think that it's very helpful. I've been taking notes, a couple notes here and there, things I'll be looking up. Let's talk a little bit about the actual things that we can do to care for cats that are going through this. And you mentioned supplements just now. Is that, how do you incorporate that?
And can you do it in conjunction with traditional steroid treatment, where we have some with steroid treatments, and then we have some with chemotherapy treatments that are going through?
Yes. And this is something that most of the things I'm going to recommend, and if there is one that may not correlate with like chemotherapy, I'll mention that, but there's so much we can do. And this ties back to the immune health. You know, something's awry. That's why cancer occurs. The immune health is working overtime. It's not able to detect the cancer cells to kill them. Like every single animal, every single person at this very moment has a cancer cell in them. Like that's a reality, but our immune system should be in an optimized place where they're detecting it and getting rid of it. So this goes down to, okay, well, what are some of those top immune mediating, modulating supplements that I love using for cats? So of course, probiotics, digestive enzymes, that's any cat, like that's preventative. Now, here's some of the things I'm doing now for my current cats that are actually can be used for prevention and can also be used for treatment. So we didn't even touch on like environmental aspects, so toxins and things like that. So keep that in mind as we're talking about some of these things. Are you putting things on your cats or using things in your house that could be leading down to some of that inflammation that could be changing, you know, genetic expression, causing leaky gut? Remember, our cats groom themselves, right? And so if you're putting a topical flea and tick preventative on them, they're going to groom it off. If they're wearing a flea and tick collar, they're going to ingest those chemicals. And there's actually studies that show, especially with oral squamous cell carcinomas, which are awful, there's connections with flea and tick products because they're ingesting those chemicals. Think about also just really quick, because this was a big part, I believe, that played a huge part in my two cats and even my German Shepherd with cancer over the past few years, are the chemicals outside. When we walk into our house, we are tracking the chemicals into the house. Make sure you take off your shoes. That's been a huge change. I've been horrible with that, I'm not going to lie. And after living in an apartment complex, we're in a different area now, but I've never seen so much spray, all those little yellow flags, like it breaks my heart. It's absolutely everywhere. And so every time I'd walk into my house, I'm bringing that in. Every time we'd take our dog for a walk, if we didn't wipe off his paws, if we didn't wipe him down, he's carrying those chemicals in. But our cats also, they're walking on the floor, they're picking it up, they're absorbing it through their paw pads. And then what are they doing? They're grooming. And so keep that in mind, because that 10%, 5 to 10%, that's it, is genetic. That's it. Everything else is lifestyle. Everything else is a lot of things that we can control. We can't control everything. So going back to some of the supplements that I'm currently using that you can use if your cat has or doesn't have cancer, just to support immune system, medicinal mushrooms.
Yes.
So powerful. And it's not just turkey tail. Turkey tail is like the king, right? There's all these research articles and, you know, there's a lot of studies with hemangiosarcoma in dogs, which is a bleeding tumor of the spleen or heart. And so everyone jumps on the turkey tail train, and turkey tail is fantastic. And I want it to be included, but don't forget about reishi. Reishi is the immortality mushroom, and your shiitake. So we have shiitake, reishi, cordyceps, your ganoderma. All of these mushrooms are going to combine to benefit the body in different ways. And so, yes, we want turkey tail, but we want these other things because they're all going to be doing different things in the body. Here's the here's two downsides with medicinal mushrooms. How are they being made? Yeah. And they also taste really bad. And so, and if they don't taste bad, like bitter, when I say like, they're not real, like I put them in like my morning beverage, like my coffee or a tea, and I add things to it to mask the taste because it's very bitter. So if you're drinking it or you're tasting it yourself and it's not bitter tasting, it's probably not being made appropriately. And when I mean that, so we have the fruiting body, the thing above the ground, right? So like your button mushrooms, that's the fruiting body. And then we have the thing down below, which is the mycelium. And a lot of times these mushrooms, they should be grown on wood. And the reason why is we're looking at the beta glucan content in these mushrooms. And that is the medicinal property of those mushrooms. So if it's grown on grains, what are you getting? A high carb mushroom. They're also not at, they're less bitter. They're lighter in color. I've literally bought from different companies. And after learning this, I was like, oh my God, this one's like made on grains and it tastes good. And I was like, this isn't helping me. So I was like, I'm just like eating carbs. That's great. So that's very important to be aware of, because goes with supplements anyways, right? Very unregulated. There's a lot of poor quality products. But one of the things that you can look for on the bag or on the supplement, do they list the beta glucan content? How do they also list, is it made with wood? Is it only mycelium? Does it include fruiting body? And so there's a couple different brands out there. One of the ones I'm using right now is CAS Options, CAS Options. And Moki just eats it right out of his food. I crumble it like it's one chew. It's actually a chew. So it has, some flavorings, which, okay, sometimes we can't avoid all the things to get cats to eat the stuff, right? And so, but I know there's other vitamins, there's other amino acids, there's other things in there to support his immune system, along with those medicinal mushrooms. One of the brands I really like for humans, and you can use this for pets, and some cats will actually eat this, is Real Mushrooms, Real Mushroom brand. That's actually the brand name. And you can buy that on Amazon. You can buy it directly from them. They source it. They test for heavy metals. That's important. And they also list beta glucans. And I think it's called their 5 Defenders option that has a lot of those different mushrooms blended together. So adding in those medicinal mushrooms is key, because it's going to help optimize the immune system. Studies have shown it reduces like lumps and bumps and cancers, and it does amazing things. And so the biggest thing is getting your cat to eat it. So start with smaller dosages and work your way up if you have a picky cat, and maybe try a couple different brands. So that's number 1. Number 2 would be things like spirulina or chlorophyll. So your green supplements are key. Now for cats that don't have, actually for both cats that don't have cancer and have cancer, ask for vaccine titers. If your cat has cancer, it should not be receiving vaccines. That hands down, 100%, do not do it. Ask your veterinarian to waive the rabies vaccine. Do a titer. You can do a titer through Protect the Pets if you are in the States, or you can do a titer through hemopet.org through Dr. Jean Dodds. And just to make sure they have the antibodies, so there's no worry if something did happen, you have proof like, okay, here's my cat's immune status. Now, if you have a cat that doesn't have cancer, ask for those vaccine titers. Reduce the amount of vaccines going into your cat and are overstimulating them when they need vaccines, because it's very hard to get away from, especially that rabies vaccine. When they need it, start them on something like spirulina or chlorophyll. There's studies that show that it increases the immunoglobulin A in the gut, and it actually helps reduce adverse reactions. And here's the other thing, it helps detox. So it's helping to pull heavy metals, it's supporting the immune system. And so we're getting multiple benefits from that. Maybe thinking like, how the heck do I get my cat to eat this? So I've actually had a lot of luck with Dr. Mercola's Spirigreen for pets. And it comes in like a little like tablet. I crush it up with like a mortar and pestle, and I just mix it in the raw food. And that and the CAS Options go right down the gullet for my cats. Like they don't think. So I thought maybe they're not going to eat this, but I crush it up. So it's not like a big, I don't think he would eat the actual like tablet form of it. And I've had a lot of patients that actually eat it that way too. So those 2 things. And now here's the thing, I get a lot of questions about, okay, is that every day, right? Like, should we be giving these things every single day, or what frequency should we give them? What I do, so for a healthy pet, I'm doing it 3 weeks on, a week off. So I'm pulse treating those supplements. I'm giving the body a break to kind of reset. And then when you re-add things in, the body's like, oh, there's the good stuff. And it like kind of makes it work better. Now, if you have a cat that has cancer, continue them on it continuously. We have to support the immune system. So this is something where I use a lot of Chinese herbs for my cancer patients. And the reason why is, like I mentioned at the start, we're looking at the root imbalances. A lot of times cancer comes from an impaired gut health. And so a lot of these anti-cancer Chinese herbs, the formulas we use, are supporting gut health. And they also incorporate a lot of anti-cancer herbs. And when we're using Chinese herbs, those are never pulse treated unless like we're treating something different from cancer. Because I find a lot of times it's working really, really well. And the pet parent goes, it's like the cancer's gone, I don't need to do it. And then they stop and the cancer comes right back. So it's suppressing things, it's optimizing immune system. So make sure if your cat's on certain things like Chinese herbs or any supplements that are being guided from the veterinarian, do not just stop them or change the treatment protocol because it may make things worse. So make sure you ask your veterinarian about that.
Quick follow-up question. You mentioned that vaccines, if they cannot avoid like the rabies, for example, you mentioned spirulina, the chloroform. How long before a rabies or a vaccine would you recommend it if it is needed, if they cannot get a titer?
Yep. So I typically do about a week prior, and then I do for a week or 2 weeks afterwards. If you've got like a healthy cat, you're just using it as a preventative. And that can go with anything. So anytime, like there's some people out there that have to give like flea and tick preventatives. I understand that. Use that spirulina, use the chlorophyll as a detox. The other thing too, another great supplement that you can utilize is milk thistle. And so this is where it comes down to environmental health, immune health. They're tied together. And this is where we have to look at the detox mechanisms. How does your cat detox? A lot of times these cats have a sluggish detox system. They're not getting out the toxins. They have heavy metals in them just from living life, getting vaccines, medications, just all sorts of things. We find a lot of heavy metals on like the fur tissue test that we do. I have never had a sample come back negative for heavy metals. Like that's how common it is. And so we have to support the detox pathways. What is that? Everyone thinks about liver, right? So liver, huge, but also chemicals are being detoxed through the kidneys. Cats are known for kidney disease, and a lot of these cats have other conditions alongside cancer. So if we're not supporting kidney health, those water soluble toxins that the liver works so hard to go from fat soluble to water soluble, now it's like stuck. It can't get out because the kidneys are like, I can't do my job. And so we need to support the kidneys and also gut health. So poop, what is it doing? Like a lot of it's bacteria, but also a lot of the toxins. So if you have a sluggish GI system, a lot of times you're going to feel toxic or be toxic. So we must support GI health, kidney health, and liver health. And milk thistle is really good at supporting the liver detox pathways because we need to get fat, like toxins are stored in the fat. And we need to get them out of the fat into water soluble form to be expelled through the gut and to be expelled through the kidneys. So definitely milk thistle. One of the brands I really like, and there's a lot of them. I know you ladies have some amazing supplements too. So feel free to like throw in some of the ones that you have also, but Animal Essentials is great because they use glycerin tincture. So medicating cats is not fun usually. Like that's a lot of times what is the limiting factor when we are treating cats with cancer or other conditions. But glycerin tinctures, they're not alcohol based. They don't taste bad and they're more concentrated. So a lot of times you can just like squirt it in their mouth real quick and the cat's like, what just happened? And they're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And then they got the dose of the herb or, I'm not a huge fan of like putting a ton of stuff in the food because we don't want to put them off of their food, but maybe you have like a tasty treat or you're putting something on like in a little meatball that you've made on the inside and you're feeding that in small amounts to your cat as a treat. So those are some suggestions for other supplements and getting them into your cat.
Okay, so just to clarify for everyone asking questions, we've got people that are asking if these things would be good for FIV and if they're good for cats after cancer. So the medicinal mushrooms, spirulina, chlorophyll, all of these, milk thistle, all of these are safe to use as a preventative and as in conjunction with other traditional medications.
100%.
If your cats have cancer. Okay.
And I like the point that you made too about pulse treatments. I think that's something, it's like, does my cat need to do this forever? I like that idea of being, giving the body a break as it were, and then re-upping it, and they can more easily identify what it is that their bodies need. You did mention earlier though, that there was one that you wouldn't recommend.
Yeah. So one of the other supplements I love because it's anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, it has a ton of research behind it, is curcumin. And so turmeric, people know it by like turmeric, the yellow Indian spice that will stain your hands and your pet's fur in the carpet forever, like literally. And so but the thing is that curcumin is from turmeric, and it's the concentrated form. And, Dr. Mercola has a product, a pet product that you can use. A lot of times I'm using human products for my dog patients because it's such a high dose. You can make golden paste too for your pets, keeping in mind it is bitter. And so starting with a small amount is really essential. Now, there's some controversy around chemotherapy, radiation, certain chemotherapy drugs, radiation, where we're creating a pro-oxidant environment. So for certain cancers, that's the way some like drugs work, is that they're actually increasing inflammation around the cancer to cause it to die or get rid of it. So when we use antioxidants, are we limiting the ability for those chemotherapy, the radiation drugs to work? Now, I've actually seen studies on the human side, and my brother's actually a radiation oncologist, so it's fascinating. He's not integrative at all or holistic, and we're slowly working on that. But one day we'll change the human side. But the thing is, I see studies on the human side for radiation that your antioxidants like vitamin E actually help reduce like skin burns from radiation. So I kind of question that. And I've had patients that like don't necessarily, they're like, I don't want to stop stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just like letting you know there's this risk. And a lot of times I'll have, if they are going through chemotherapy or radiation, I'm like, stop it a couple of days before, restart a couple of days after. So we're essentially pulse treating, and it's not necessarily going to inhibit how the chemo or the radiation works. But that is something that's out there. Curcumin is one of those. That's a really great antioxidant. Vitamin E is used a lot. But I kind of have mixed feelings about it because I see patients do really great and they didn't stop the like antioxidant supplements or herbs. So, but it is something to be aware of. Ask your veterinarian, ask your oncologist about it. And just be aware, they may not be familiar with that type of thing too, if they're not familiar with herbs and supplements and the integrative approach. But that's definitely one I would add in. You can use that also as a preventative. So any of your aging cats, I use this for osteoarthritis, and it's a great supplement, and it reduces the risk of, or the need to go on things like non-steroidals or other pain medications like gabapentin, because cats, we don't have a lot of pain medications for them that, are safe. We're worried about kidney disease and GI issues and liver disease. And so if we can use supplements that are helping support the body and reduce inflammation naturally, great, let's prevent it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we started using curcumin ourselves in replacement of ibuprofen for like headaches, menstrual cramps, things like that. Yeah. Like that's what we use now instead. And that's because we saw a study recently, actually, that it works better. Curcumin works better than ibuprofen. It was a study on those two. And so I was like, well, let's get rid of the ibuprofen for those cases. And it works great.
Yeah. So that was actually one of the first studies I stumbled upon so my husband has ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease. And so doing all the research, it's fascinating because you find these other studies that showcase how it works better than the traditional medications like mesalamine, which is a non-steroidal. And so we've been on like high doses of curcumin for a long time, but your cat, so a lot of cats have GI lymphoma, right? Or you're not sure, is this IBD or is this GI lymphoma? Because the symptoms are a lot of times the same. You can use curcumin and it helps with inflammatory bowel disease. And if you don't know which one your cat has, it's working for both. Now, here's the other thing with curcumin though, that we have to keep in mind. So if your cat has a bleeding disorder or, we're worried about thin blood or anything like that, make sure you talk to your veterinarian because it can thin the blood. The other thing is every single herb, every single food, every single being, even my desk has energy to it. And so curcumin is warming. And so that is the energetic property of curcumin. So if you have a cat that tends to like overheat easily, they like staying away, like most people think like, oh yeah, my cat lays in the sun, or, not every cat likes to do that. And so this is where looking at the individual patient and going, okay, well, where do they like to lay? Do they lay in the sun or are they laying in the shade? Do they lay on the heater vent in the winter, for your colder climates? Or do they tend to stay in like the cool basement? And if your cat tends to like be hot and they're avoiding the sun and sunbathing, then what you can do, make sure you start with a very small dose if you're using curcumin. And if you notice they get hotter, or if they have skin diseases that tend towards the inflammatory side and it's making it worse, reduce that or remove it. So that's key. Also, one of the other things I wanted to backtrack on, your greens. Now, there are some reports, especially probiotics and greens. Every pet's different. This is why one size doesn't always fit all. But if your cat has an autoimmune condition, sometimes that can flare it. And so this is where, if you have a sensitive cat, a lot of times we're dealing with a heavy metal issue, and that makes your cat really sensitive. And so you add something and they get like GI upset, they start vomiting, they just don't do well, they don't feel well. So definitely, test for those, ask your veterinarian. You can always send me a message too, what that looks like. There's fur tests you can do that are fantastic at identifying that, but start small. If you're ever worried, just start small, work your way up to that like dosage that's on the label or whatever your veterinarian is saying. And I have a lot of clients where we're transitioning over to some of these supplements, and it takes like 4 to 6 weeks. I know we all want to like get to the thing right away, but sometimes we do have to go slow and figure out, well, why is your cat sensitive? What's going on? How do we mitigate that? How do we help them? And then we slowly introduce the right things for them.
Yeah. Great follow-up question from Laura Lee. Love you, Laura Lee. She said all these supplements that we're talking about, the mushrooms, the greens, can they be frozen? Because she freezes chicken liver as treats, and wondered if she could actually put those into the treat and then freeze them.
I believe so. I don't think it affects how it works. You should be fine being able to do that. So yeah, I don't think it'll degrade it.
Right. Okay. So let's talk briefly about the emotional aspect.
Yes.
And then we'll get to a couple of questions. Where's the time go?
I know it goes by so fast.
It's okay. We can go a little longer. It's fine.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about the emotion, because we personally haven't been through knock on wood, a case of our cats with cancer per se. Now, we thought it was cancer. It was actually feline leukemia virus, but we thought it was cancer because we didn't know what feline leukemia was, and it sounded like cancer. But you have personally dealt with this, so you can address those, especially in the audience right now, that are going through.
Madison is here today.
Hi, yes, Madison. That are going through that.
Yeah, cancer is hard, and I've had 3 pets now with cancer, 2 cats, 1 dog, and my 2 cats with it. So they had a cancer that's not a normal cancer. Usually, like for cats that develop lymphoma, GI lymphoma, it's a slow cancer. So a lot of times the treatment is steroids, and they can live a really good quality of life for years. My cats weren't that case. They had, essentially, I found it, my cat was laying on our coffee table in our sunroom, and my husband was like, what's that in his abdomen? And I was like, what is that? And I palpated his abdomen, and I was like, that's a mass. And within 2 weeks, he was gone. He developed fluid in his chest. And so it was a case where I took him to the oncologist. We worked it up. They couldn't even identify where it was attached. She's like, I believe this is a GI lymphoma. We took some aspirates. It came back. The labs that you can run with your oncologist, they can identify if there's certain genetic markers. And she was like, this is a GI lymphoma, and it's absolutely everywhere. And so it was like, I'm not going to do chemo. I'm going to keep him comfortable. And that's what we're going to do, because I knew his time was very limited, and it was devastating, absolutely devastating, because when you get a cancer diagnosis, hopefully you have time to process and work out a plan. And with Stanley, I didn't have time. Like, that was it. And so that was very difficult. And I had to shift to the mindset, like, each moment is precious, and I'm just going to be present with this cat and give him as much of my time as I can, which is where we should be for a lot of our cancer patients, or anyways in normal life. But this was a huge reminder. Now, my other cat, a year after Stanley passed, I was like, she started having some intermittent vomiting episodes. And I was like, that's not normal. And so I'm feeling her abdomen. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't think that's a mass, like this would be crazy, right? Why would my 2 cats get the same thing? Like that's not a normal finding. And, you know, of course I watched her for like a week and I was like, this isn't right. And I brought her in, and they, like the vets I worked. So I was at the traditional clinic. I was the integrative veterinarian at the time. This was about, it's probably been about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. And they kind of like laughed at me. There was like, no, you're crazy, Katie. Like, there's no way. Like, and I was like, no, I swear to God, like there's something, like, is it her spleen? Is it the liver? Like there's something there. I'm not crazy. And so the veterinarian that was like I came in on my day off. I was like, just do the things, do all the tests. I need to, like, this is insane. And we did the x-ray, and she's like, Katie, I think it's her spleen. And so I was like, seriously, what the heck? And so we ended up going to the oncologist, and Callie was the sweetest cat. She was a tortoiseshell, and she lived into her tortoiseshell breed. She was a sassy little monster, but she was the sweetest little thing. And so we ended up diagnosing aggressive GI lymphoma. We did an aspirate, and she was in an earlier stage than Stanley. It was more localized. It was still weird. It was kind of weird to like see on an ultrasound, like where it was connected. And I made the decision at that time, and this was really hard for me because I love a holistic approach, and that'll always be my first go-to. And if we can just use holistic and avoid chemo, I go down that path. But with Callie, I knew that I couldn't do all the things I wanted and knew how to do with her. And so I decided to do chemotherapy because I knew for lymphoma, there's a lot of research behind it. A lot of cats gain a lot of time, and I didn't want just 2 weeks with her, like with Stanley. And so we ended up going down the chemotherapy route. I kept her raw diet. So she's actually where I said at the beginning, like a lot of times they'll say, don't feed raw, they're immunosuppressed, it's going to cause bacterial. I kept her on raw. I was like, screw this. I'm not putting her on like kibble or anything. And so I kept her on raw. I tried to add in some supplements, but she was very picky. And I essentially, what I did for her is I just shifted my focus to my emotions and my energy. And I knew that if I was stressed and if I was flustered, she would pick up on those emotions. And at this time, I was working at a clinic that I hated. This was like my transition period, like probably about literally actually when we ended up euthanizing her, we gained about 6 months of time with her. The weekend before we euthanized her, I actually quit my vet clinic job and started my own business. So that tells you the emotional side of things, to be honest and real and super transparent. It was a very stressful time. And I truly believe that played a part in everything, but I had to intentionally set those intentions that she needs me strong and I need to be here for her. And I can't bring my stress to her. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to get rid of all of that, but this is where I find for myself with dealing with stress and watching your fur family be sick, this is where I go back to, what is my morning routine? How am I taking care of myself? How am I showing up for my family? Because if we're pouring from an empty cup, there's nothing to pour. And that is true. And it's not easy, but this is where journaling was very powerful for me. Meditating, even if it's only 5 minutes, was so powerful. Like letting those thoughts, and I am a busy person up here. It doesn't shut down, like even in my sleep, but letting those thoughts in, the fears that I was feeling, and just letting them go away. And then every single moment that I had was sitting with her and just like and I am not a Reiki practitioner, but we all have the ability to kind of draw on this like quiet strength and this quiet energy within us. And when you just sit, like you do it today with your cats, like just sit there and be quiet and just like turn off the TV, turn off the news, throw the phone away, like in another room, like turn off notifications and just sit there and have your cat next to you. If they want to sit on you, great. Otherwise, just put your hand on them and just feel gratitude and feel the love and feel peace and feel healing. And I guarantee you it will help you feel better, but it will also give strength to your cat. Our cats are energetic beings and they absorb everything. And I know with where I was, it played a part, and I did the best that I could. And looking back, I don't hold guilt. You know, there's things that I wish I had done differently, but moving forward, how can we show up for our cats now? So for everyone at the beginning that said, I had a cat with cancer, I want to avoid that. This is how you avoid it. Do the things that start filling your cup to help you be more present, to bring gratitude in your day, to be present with your cats, because they will feel it, they will absorb it, and it will help their overall health. And I know that sounds super woo-woo, but it has been the biggest game changer in my entire life. And when Finn, so fast forward 2 years, my German Shepherd developed a brain tumor, started having seizures. That's what I fell back on, were those practices I set up to help guide and help calm him down when he was in a seizure, to help give him strength. And when we were told he had a week to live, we did holistic with this dog. We gained an additional year of good quality of life. And so this is where it can feel, you can feel hopeless. You're probably being told there's no other way, but every single person here has the ability within them to bring that energy and bring that peace and bring that healing energy to your cat. So it's just such a big part that I think we get so focused on, let me research, let me find the answer. And I've recently been doing a lot of interviews with pet parents for an upcoming program that I want to create to just guide people better. And one of the biggest things they say is, I've spent so much time researching, and they're like, I wish I had that time back with my pet. And I think it's hard because you feel helpless and hopeless and you want to find that information. But I think, remember, the biggest thing is that our pets are not with us for long enough anyways. Make sure you have time scheduled to sit with them and be present with them, especially if they have cancer, because you never know when they're going to pass. Like Stanley, I didn't know. I knew his time was limited. 2 weeks is very quick. And I miss that little man so much. And I miss Callie so much. And I miss Finn so much. And I would do everything possible to bring them back. But I am so grateful that I was able to give time and space for both Callie and for Finn and for my cats now, like sitting and being present and slowing down and not being a crazy mad woman, and allowing like the stress and the energy of the world to affect how I show up every day.
Yeah. And
that's so valuable.
Love. Yeah.
It was like G.K. Chesterton said that gratitude is the highest form of thought.
Yeah.
And I think that it's sometimes it's hard to feel grateful, especially when you're stressed and you're exhausted and all of that. But I think, you know, these little beings that we share our lives with, they're sponges. They really are such sponges. And it's such a great reminder. The energy is palpable. I love that. I want to clip that. Do this today. I think we all need to be reminded. Let's take time to all do this today. I think it changes so much.
It does. One of the, so obviously, you know, I got into this area of medicine because of my husband and autoimmune disease. And so I'm constantly like researching and learning more and seeing like, okay, does this apply to the pet side, and learning more on the pet side. And one of the people that I found really amazing to follow and learn from is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And his book is Breaking the Habit of You. And it's like, it is crazy. Honestly, if every single person would read that book, this world would change in an instant, because it's talking about regaining that present moment, but also the power of meditation. He uses meditation, but he also studies the science behind it and has done brain scans to showcase how people are healing their vision. They're having spontaneous remissions. And this is where you can do that for yourself to keep you healthy, or if you have a condition, tapping into and changing, essentially, you become a new person. And it's not easy, right? We have our subconscious, and like this is probably going way too deep for this conversation, but we have this subconscious that's battling us, and it's keeping us in this emotion of stress, worry, frustration. And when we shift that and we tap into our subconscious and change it, we can heal our pets too. Not only can we heal ourselves, but we can heal our pets. And I'm not saying like this will take away cancer. I'm not saying like, so please, it may, but it's a great starting place to help yourself heal. Because I know we all need a little bit of healing with how crazy things have been. in this world the past few years, but also for our pets. And especially with this cancer talk, this is one of the most stressful things that any pet parent will go through. And if we can ground ourselves and take on some of these tools, even if they're from the human side, it will definitely help.
Oh, wow. Well said. We need to bring up, we are already at 2:00 here.
And we have
a couple questions. We will try, let's do those really quick. But I love that Carrie said, Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Becoming Supernatural.
Yeah, great book.
Yes.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and on the cancer thing, you've read or you've seen, what was that one book? It was very popular. Oh, The Secret.
Yes.
where somebody cured herself of breast cancer simply through changing her mindset and going into, the happy thoughts, if you will, like really changing quieting the mind and bringing the power of positive thinking.
Well, you said it at the top of this talk, setting those intentions.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we all kind of feel flung about by the clutter of the day.
Yes.
And it makes a big difference when you take time to set intentions, especially in the morning. What is your morning routine, and how does that energy ripple effect throughout the day?
And we have to get better at that.
Yeah, I think, we all do, essentially. It's one of the hardest things to do. And I think it's important also, it's when you sit down with your pet, set the intention. What do you want to bring for that session with your pet? And also, where are you at mentally? Maybe that session with your pet shouldn't happen right now. If you just got off a call with an angry client, or, you just drove home through crazy traffic and you almost got run off the road. So I think that's important too, is checking in. We're so used to checking out and not feeling that. Checking in, and is this a good time to sit with my pets, or are they going to absorb some of this negative energy that I'm feeling right now? So that's a very powerful exercise that we just have to tap into setting that intention and be cognizant of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I know when our high stress cat, Pooh Bear, I always have to check myself before I'll sit down with him, because I'm also high stressed. I have high anxiety. And so I'll be like, am I okay to sit down and pet him, or am I not? Because he catches on immediately. He knows. He'll be like, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not, maybe it's not the right time. Not for me.
Not feeling
she'll sit down and be fine. Okay. So do you have the questions on hand, or?
I do. I actually have them brought up.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome, because they're on my phone, but I'm looking at comments. So it would be awesome if you can address some of these. We've got a lot of comments, but we'll come back if you can address the questions. There weren't too many that were submitted in advance.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll read them, and then what I'll do is I'll address what I can and give some guidance and some other resources too that I think will be really valuable for people. So Madison had a question. I have a kitty currently battling SCL. She had an ultrasound and lymph nodes inflamed. Tech took a fine needle biopsy, which pathologist said it's most likely lymphoma. Started chemo, some homeopathy. She eats horrible food. Only thing we can get her to eat is fancy feasts. She's 11 years old. Any recommendations on how we should proceed? She's on chemo, on Dancitron for nausea, Nux vomica for nausea, probiotics that we have to syringe feed in order for her to get down, B12 daily by Jackson Galaxy. We'll be starting a detox, anxiously awaiting for her turkey tail mushrooms to arrive. At times we have to syringe feed, especially to get supplements in. Muscle reading test says she wants to live. Should we take her to an oncologist or continue going to our regular vet? I don't want her to be cut open. I just can't put her through that. I don't want anything invasive to happen. Should we do, we know they'll probably want to do another ultrasound blood work. Should we do that when it just was recently done? Also, should we stress Aspen by taking her to the appointment, or just go and discuss options with the doctor? Are we being cruel? Do we keep helping her fight? Thank you. Oh, Madison, I can relate to you with this. And so I'm guessing this is a lymphoma. I don't know if I know she's here. So if she can just comment, just to confirm, like the SCL, small cell lymphoma, I'm guessing, but it is, okay. Okay. So here's what I always tell my patients, and this is what I've done for my own self, is I think it's important to go to an oncologist if you're able to, because yes, there's certain ways that we treat. And a lot of times with the lymphoma, with like low grade lymphomas and even high grade, like with my own cats, they go on steroids. But this is where it's important to have that conversation with an oncologist who's doing that chemotherapy. And this was also one of those things for my own cat, where I was like, okay, I want all the information. I want to know the pros and the cons, that do the benefits outweigh the risks for me going down this path of chemotherapy? And for me and my cat, Callie, it did. And that's why we did chemotherapy. Now, what I found really helpful for my own cat, because remember, I mentioned she was great, very loving, but turned into a ferocious tiger. If you tried to medicate her, put an acupuncture needle in her, she was not a fan. And so we actually used transdermal medications. So we used a topical Meritaz, which is an appetite stimulant. And we also used a topical, I believe it was a steroid. And it reduced the amount of stress I had to put her through every single day. And it helped her appetite. It kept her going. I would use things like, if you feel like she's nauseous, so if you have a cat, this is how you can tell. They go and they sniff the food and they walk away, and we know something like GI lymphoma is occurring, they're probably nauseous and we're not controlling that nausea. So asking your veterinarian, would Serenia help, which is stronger? That can be more powerful and help. Now, so essentially I would say get the second opinion if you can. If you're in a financial, like some people can't financially, and I understand that, but if you're able to with your budget, go and get that second opinion. Continue to do the supplements that you're using. Usually they don't have to have surgery, things like that. I don't know all the specifics, but this would be something where they would probably be doing a similar chemotherapy protocol that my cat Callie had. And it's been around for a really long time. It can come with side effects. Any chemo can, that's how chemo works. But by doing the turkey tail, the mushrooms, supporting gut health, using the things like the probiotics, the digestive enzymes, maybe using a chlorella product if she'll eat it. Now, what I find a lot, and you mentioned this, I want to address this, is that the fancy feast, it's the only thing she'll eat. I want her eating. If that's all she'll eat, I don't care. I know there's mixed opinions about that, but if the cat's not eating, the cat's not going to survive. So don't get anxious over the fancy feast. Go, she's eating, and what can I use to support her optimal health, her gut health? To like, if she's eating that, great, let's hide some stuff in there to support her immune system. So try not to stress too much that she's not on a raw food diet, or she's not, getting the human grade food, because that stress it won't help. And I think that's definitely a big problem that a lot of cat parents have when they go down this path.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the, getting her to eat is one of her biggest issues right now. And so
follow-up question on that is that they're kind of doing the burrito thing, syringe feeding her a lot of the supplements
and food.
Yeah. And sometimes in the food. The question was, she doesn't want to create a food aversion, right? By putting the supplements into the little bit of food that she will eat on her own. Do you have any recommendations for how best, especially like you were saying, you mentioned using transdermal things that really help alleviate stress? I'm not sure that those are options right now, but she is getting, it's good. Aspen, the little kitty, she's getting feisty again, formal feral, and she's kind of biting and scratching. So she does not like this at all.
Yeah.
Are there any tips, tricks for trying to get those things that she really needs?
Or just words of encouragement if
Yeah, the thing is that if it becomes where you need to do supplements, like maybe 2 to 3 times a week to give her a break, that's really important, because like we were just talking about, the stress, the emotional component is going to outweigh anything else that you're doing. And so I think we talk a lot about the supplements and adding all this stuff in and feeding the right diet. And I think if your cat doesn't, this is like Callie, if your cat doesn't tolerate it, what supplements can we use transdermally? If she's getting sub-Q fluids, ask your veterinarian to add the B12 into the fluids to help supplement that'll support appetite. It'll help if she does go down the chemotherapy path. It also helps produce red blood cells. There's a lot of great benefits for B12. You're giving it, I know, orally, but if you're doing sub-Q fluids, I'm not sure if she is, that can help too. And maybe that's once a week thing where the vet does it, so she's not stressed at home. Using your rescue remedies, I use a lot of essential oils. One of them actually, so animal EO is a really good one. And this is Kitty Boost.
Yes.
So this is a really great option where you can diffuse this. You can use it topically if the cat isn't stressed by that, allow them to self-select, but you can diffuse some of these safe essential oils. Animal EO is a great one they have one I think called Sunshine too, that you can diffuse, and it helps like boost the mood, and diffuse it in an open room where the cat can come and go as they please. And a lot of times what you'll find is when the cat truly needs it, they will actually so I have a diffuser, I don't know if you can see it back there behind me on that little side table. And if I'm diffusing that and Moki or Kiwi want it, they'll actually sit on that chair and they'll just stay there. And this room is completely open. They can come and go as they please. And I know that they want that. Finn was the same. He would actually sit underneath the diffuser and he'd like put his little nose up and sniff it. And I was like, if he doesn't want that, he's going to leave. So as long as we're using safe essential oils, that's another great way to add that in. Frankincense is powerful for cancer and treating cancer. And frankincense is actually part of this Kitty Boost blend, but you could also get frankincense as an essential oil by itself and diffuse that. So maybe try using some of those options where it's not you touching and pilling and medicating and, making a burrito and all the things, and also do it less frequently and know that the less stress that's happening will actually make up for, even if you are giving less supplements, because that is very powerful.
Because I think that's one of the hardest things is when we're stressed, and we've gone through things where we either have to do a shot or we have to do a pill. It's stressful for us and it's very stressful for our pets. So I love that great guidance because, Madison was saying they're concerned about having to do this twice a day. Aspen is getting very stressed by it. So kind of taking a step back and looking more at that holistic emotional aspect of what she's going through and doing the things that we can do and giving some of those other things a bit of a break and trying some of these other things like I always say Animalio. Yeah. Animal EO by Dr. Melissa Shelton.
I think I say it wrong, actually. It's Animalia or something, right? Yeah, I say it wrong. sorry, Melissa Shelton.
She's fabulous. So, and that's the one that we, the essential oil company that we use as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question.
Is there?
Okay. All right. It's a weird name. Ice Q is cucumber, I think. I think it's angel. Okay. So anyways, the question is, one of my cats passed from lung cancer in April of this year. We miss her terribly. I have her sister. She was originally taken to the city shelter with. We adopted them together. Is lung cancer something that her sister will also be predisposed to? Is there anything I can do to help make sure she doesn't develop it? My cats eat a wet food diet, mainly Raruva and Applause. Live indoors, get plenty of playtime, exercise, annual blood work done. Okay, so I'm sorry that you lost your kitty. And one of the things, and it can be hard. So Stanley and Callie were brother and sister. And there probably was some genetic component, but going back to the statistics, only 5 to 10% is genetic. And so the chance of something else happening is very slim, like the same thing. Now, here's the thing, and this is where I had to shift my focus and looking at my 2 cats and what happened. And even with Finn, I went, holy smokes, what's in my environment? Like what's going on in my environment? And like I mentioned, there was a lot of emotional stress, leaving the vet clinic, stressful work environment. There was a lot of stuff happening, and we moved house. We got away from that apartment, but there was also a lot of spray. There were a lot of pesticides that we were all being exposed to. And then also, what's the water? A lot of toxins, chemicals are in the water. So what I would say is, okay, well, let's take a step back and look, okay, what were we feeding for our kitty that passed away? Maybe there wasn't something that we could do, but also let's reassess and make sure we're not adding in additional chemicals that we don't need to. Let's look at the cleaning products we're using in the house. Let's look at the laundry detergent that we're using. Are there any Glade plug-in diffusers? Are we cleaning the floors with anything? Because those are all things we can control. I can't control what my neighbor does, even though I think they're an idiot for spraying their yard and all of that, but I can't control control at the end of the day what the city does, what my neighbor does, but I can control this internal environment as much as possible. So what I would say is try not to worry too much. Remember that emotional component, but do the things that support gut health and support immune health and support emotional and environmental health internally in that house. And that's where adding in digestive support. I don't know how old this kitty is. So supplements can change as they age or get older, depending on what's going on and based on that individual pet. I would say I like Weruva. Make sure you're looking at the ingredient list because I know there's different varieties in that type of food. Applause if you're feeding that by itself. I don't believe it's actually it's not a good diet. So I would get rid of that, to be honest.
They were also part of the last one.
They were the last recall, right?
They were part of the last recall. Yeah. And it's not a fully balanced diet.
No, it's like a supplemental diet. Yeah. And so why are we feeding it? We probably don't need it. Let's just get rid of it. Right. And so going to like rotating brands is another key thing that I didn't talk about. I really like rotating brands and different proteins. And the reason why, especially if we have to feed, like canned food's still a processed food, it's less processed than kibble, but we can't control what these companies are doing. And so if there is a recall, there's less chance of something happening to your pet if you're constantly rotating. And if there's something that's minimal, I think it was, actually, I think it was Rodney Habib or Karen Becker today said 80% of commercial diets are low in vitamin D.
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, how do we mitigate that? Let's rotate brands. But here's another thing. You can actually test for vitamin D levels. And for any kitty that has possibly inflammatory bowel disease, and you're not sure if it's inflammatory bowel disease or lymphoma, there's a lot of new cancer diagnostic tests that you can do. One of the great labs out there is V as in like vet, D as in dog, I labs, and they have a cancer profile, and it actually looks for different genetic markers that can identify if your cat has inflammatory bowel disease or if they have GI lymphoma. So rather than doing a biopsy where they have to like open your kitty and do a surgery, now you can do a blood test and get a better idea. But also what they're checking are your vitamin B levels, your vitamin D levels. So many patients, and here's the thing, I know we're not talking about human health, but most of us are low in vitamin D. And I know personally, I actually have a genetic variation where I don't make vitamin D. I can sit in the sun and cook all day and I don't make vitamin D. And I know that because I've done my genetic tests. And unfortunately with pets, we find that most patients with autoimmune disease, cancer, chronic illness are low in vitamin D. So don't just supplement, test, because it can be harmful if you supplement without knowing their levels. But that VDI lab test is really powerful. So definitely ask your veterinarian about that, especially if your cat's having chronic GI issues, but also ask them, like, can we check the vitamin D levels? Can we check the cellular health status of what's going on in the body? Because this is going to identify what's going on. I find I go back to those fur tests because this is something I'm running a lot now with my patients, because I'm like, whoa, this just like gave me a whole new like resource and tools to showcase what's happening in the body. And 99% of patients, dogs and cats, are low in calcium, phosphorus, and potassium. And they're high in sodium. And you know why? Because they're at a stress response. They're stuck in a sympathetic nervous system state. And we can see that with a fur sample. Like, that's how crazy it is. And then it also tests heavy metals. And like I mentioned before, most pets have a heavy metal issue, which makes them super sensitive. So we try to add in supplements. We try to add the chlorophyll, and your pet's having like this detox reaction and they're not doing well. And that's the power of some of these tests. So ask your veterinarian about it. If you have questions about that, I run that for pet parents. Send me a message, the natural pet doctor. But that's where, rather than like playing the hope game and like being like, well, I think they're fine, I'm not sure. And then like me, 3 pets with cancer, I'm like, okay, I want to know that these like cats are fine. Sending in that first sample, getting the blood test done, doing the annual blood work, making sure we're checking for SDMA for cats and early onset kidney disease, so that we can start doing the preventative before it becomes a symptom and we have now a disease we can name. I don't like that. I like having symptoms where they're like, I don't know what's happening. The vet can't name it. And I'm like, this is a good stage. This means we can like most likely reverse it. and get your pet back onto the path of health and wellness, versus now we have cancer, we have a diagnosis, the disease process is so far advanced, we now can name it. So I hope that makes sense.
That really does. I mean, I was even thinking same thing for kidney disease. I mean, that's something that we really mind blowing, the different stages, and that's, you can catch it so much earlier. I hate to even say these words. We are 21 minutes past.
I think there's one more question.
There's one more. Well, it's kind of like a basic one, but there's not really a question, but I think let me answer Carrie Lynn's question real quick. She said, I have many questions. Right now, her Taz has a large lump mass growing under his chin, not cat acne. So she's waiting for her vet appointment for it to be checked and biopsied. And she said, cross your fingers for Taz. So when everyone here is sitting down and setting an intention and grounding themselves and like putting in the positive energy, say a prayer for Taz. But Carrie, you're doing the right thing. Get it biopsied, figure out what it is, and then you can move forward. And one of the things I love using for these is essential oils. So, depending on what it is, if they can remove it, great, remove it. But also frankincense essential oil topically is so powerful at helping these lumps and bumps, and it can be safe for cats. I know a lot of people are afraid of essential oils, but when we use the right companies and the right dilutions, they can be really powerful for cats, especially when they have cancer.
I love that. I also shout out the brand that you use and the brand that we've used, Animalio or Animalio. Dr. Melissa Shelton, the veterinarian that makes these, has a really comprehensive
book. She has a whole book.
Yes. I don't know if I have it by me. No. I usually have it sitting next to me, but somewhere back there, over there.
It does have a nice little overview to kind of help explain some of the scary stuff about that. I want to point out, and I want you to piggyback on top of this. I think there's so many people here that are so grateful for your time today. I want to point out that you offer telehealth appointments, which I think is such an incredible gift. Tell us a little bit more about where people can find you, where people can make an appointment with you, some of the resources that you have.
And real quick, Lindsay has tagged your or pinned your website in the comments here for anybody that wants a quick pick.
Great. Yeah. So do telehealth consults for pet parents across the globe. You can go to thenaturalpetdoctor.com. You can also send me a message. I have Facebook and Instagram. It's The Natural Pet Doctor. One of the newer things that we're doing that I talked a lot about, because I'm just really excited about what we're seeing, are those fur tests. And that's something where if you just want to see the cellular health of your cat and just do that and not do a full consultation, just to gain okay, these are some of the supplements I need to add in, send me a message. And ladies, I will share that more. I know you asked for more information. It's like the beginning stages. So I'll send more information your way too. But definitely, if you need help, if you need guidance, your path, your journey is a lot faster. It's a lot easier. It does tend to be less expensive over the long run, less stressful when you are working with an integrative or a holistic veterinarian. So I partner a lot with the conventional vets. I partner with the oncologists, because we're all bringing different things to the table that integrate beautifully together to optimize health or treat the disease. So keep that in mind, because I see it and I hear it. There's just so much time spent researching and trying different supplements and trying all the things. And a lot of times having a partner to help guide you just makes it so much easier and less stressful, rather than trying to figure it out all on your own. So definitely check out thenaturalpetdoctor.com. And if you need anything, or if you just can't find a resource or something like that, send me a message.
Yeah, I want to say too that you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. Really appreciate that.
I hear you're on TikTok too.
YouTube would be YouTube's the other one. So Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet. YouTube there, or TikTok. I can't even do Instagram reels. Like, let's be real.
We're like sitting on Twitter somewhere. It's like, no.
I know. There's so many platforms. I'm just like, I don't know. I can't keep up.
What I can say though is that we are all so grateful for your time, for your journey. That is such an incredible resource for all of us. And I'm happy to say, I'm going to put a little teaser out there. There's a rumor that we're looking to lock in October 10th for another informative, empowering, and illuminating talk with you. Dr. Katie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us and for staying overtime to answer everybody's questions.
Yeah, no problem. You ladies know I love it. So I appreciate you doing this for everyone and helping to be a part of this amazing movement we're on to help cats worldwide, pets worldwide, and just get the information and the knowledge out there to help people know that there are options. You do have, we can give you hope again. And you know, I appreciate being a part of your journey too. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. We have so many notes now.
I know.
So we've learned a lot from you today. So thank you. Go have a happy Sunday.
Remind everybody, go sit with your babies and experience gratitude.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Take care. Bye.